Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sky U Pod. Thanks for joining us as always. Just a quick announcement before we jump into our topics for tonight. We ran into a little trouble on X. Looks like we might need a new premium account in order to live stream through that platform. We're kind of
Come
working through
on,
the kinks to
Elon.
see. Right. We're working through the kinks to see if we can kind of bypass that and just deliver you the content on that platform. But until then, catch us on YouTube. You can obviously still hear us on all podcasts everywhere. Like and subscribe. Get the info out there. We love to interact with you. Leave comments, share. Otherwise, Curdy, how we doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm a little bummed Elon turned on us there, but you know what? He just lost. Sky U Pod was kind of exclusive to X and YouTube. We're going to have to spread our wings now and use
Yeah,
other social media platforms to
gonna have to
get
pull
around
out.
that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Life's going good, man. How are you?
Tremendous, tremendous. Sorry.
Shorty,
Yeah,
just because me and Max gave our thoughts last episode about what we thought a successful season would be for this Gopher squad. Maybe you chime in here before we go through each game. Maybe just give your thoughts on what you would be deemed as a success. What's the win mark, I guess, that you think PJ needs to
yeah.
get to for a successful season?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I'm sorry for missing last episode. My family and I took a nice little trip to Mexico. But it's a topic that I would have loved to have been a part of because I I think that this season's very intriguing because it is challenging and it really can give the Gophers a shot at being a solid team if they win those kind of tight games that they're pretty much even with other teams. I'm thinking about against UNC for the first game, Iowa. How are they going to do against UCLA, Illinois, Rutgers, even Wisconsin? Those are a lot of games that I think are going to be toss ups maybe when the season rolls around. But I
Yeah.
do hope that the Gophers can win a majority of those. But having said all that, I think that at the very best, I could see the Gophers dropping 3 games to go 9-3. That's the very best I could see. And we're
Okay.
talking losses to just, a Michigan team, USC, and Penn State. And when you look at the other games, I don't think that that's totally out of hand to say 9-3 is reasonable because I do think that the UNC game is winnable. Rhode Island, Nevada, Iowa. We got the best of them
Yeah.
last year. It's at home this year. Wisconsin at the end of the year. You got Rutgers, Maryland, and UCLA. Illinois could be tricky, but hopefully we can kind of get the best of them this year. So I do think that 9-3 is top notch, ceiling, sort of performance. I will say that I will personally think if you go 8-4, that's a good season. I would be very happy if they went at 8-4 this year. In
Yeah.
terms of a floor, boy,
How about even before a floor? What's a passing grade? Is your 8-4 just the bare minimum passing grade? Because that to me, that's a pretty
yeah,
good season with this year's schedule.
yeah. I think that for a passing grade, you have to go 7-5. I'm a little bit. I feel like I'm a little on the stricter side, if I'm being honest, because I frankly am a little sick of the 6-6, the 7-5s. I'd like to see a little more from the squad and out of PJ Fleck. Win those games that you're supposed to win and win a few of those games that are kind of toss ups. You have to prove that you can win those big games that could go either way. And I feel like we haven't really seen that over the past couple of years. Like
Yeah.
blew it against Illinois last year, not really competing against those top notch teams. So I personally will think 8-4 is passing and also a phenomenal season. I think in general, though, because you got to look at the new Big Ten and the schedule, 7-5, I think in general will be passable.
Yeah.
Um, In terms of floor, frankly, the Gophers could literally win maybe 4 games. I would even say maybe 3 games because UNC is the first one. That's tough. I was going to be coming hard because of last season. Michigan, USC. You could drop one on the road at UCLA. That seems like one of those trap games, where the Gophers always seem to drop one. That could be it. Illinois, we haven't done it. Maryland, that's doable, but they can be solid sometimes. Rutgers, we know the drama there, and then Wisconsin is a rival, and they got the best of us last year, and they'll probably be a better team. So
Yeah.
I think floor is going to be 3 to 4 wins, which would be a huge disappointment, tremendous disappointment. If you don't win 7 games at least, it's a complete failure of the season.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm not too far off. I think I went to 10 for the ceiling. Just if everything breaks your way, you
Sure.
squeeze the one out against USC or something. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, let's get into it.
All right. So tonight we had a couple topics, but first I'd like to just start on our season preview. We're going to go game by game and kind of think and kind of let you know our thoughts on who's going to win, maybe how the game's going to go, what our predictions are. Max, who's not here with us tonight, sending his picks to us, so we'll kind of chime in what his thoughts are. But other than that, we'll get rolling with that. Let's start with the first game of the season, a big one, and my most important game, I think, of the season. Just start off strong. At home against North Carolina. Curdy, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this game? Give it to me.
So I have several games, a handful of games actually, that are, I think, completely toss-ups, 50-50 if you're going to win or not. This is definitely one of those. Yes, they don't have Drake May anymore. They do have Max Johnson, who's the son of Brad Johnson, as most of you know. And if you take his last 2 seasons, one at A&M, one at LSU, he did average 2,700 yards and 23 touchdowns a season. So it's not like a complete fall off. He's obviously got a lot of talent. They have some transfers in on the offensive line. They have one of the best running backs in the country in Omar Hampton. The defense was terrible last year, but we only put up 13 points. Now we think we have the remedy to fix that. Listen, I don't think there's any moral victories for a close loss here, but I do think a close loss is how it starts out for the Gophers this season. Just a couple, I think a couple big plays hurt them, but I think it's going to get better. I think the defense gets better as the year goes on, as you'll see with my predictions. But I think I don't want to set in a score. We're just kind of giving our gut feel, but I think an early season close loss where we see improvements on the offense. The pieces are there on defense, but it's just, 2 new starting safeties. Still, a new defensive coordinator. I think it's a very close coin flip game, but I think we come up just a tad short in the opener against North Carolina.
Yeah, you touched on it great. UNC has a lot of playmakers on their team. The loss of Drake May, is big, but I think that they'll be able to reload somewhat. Look, I think that this game at home is critical, and I'm glad that it is at home. Historically, the Gophers have really played solid games first game of the season. If you look at what was it, a few years ago when Mo tore his Achilles playing against Ohio State at home, you play them tough. Kind of like you were mentioning, a few big plays kind of are broken away, and that's kind of the difference between winning and losing that game. You kind of looked last year against Nebraska, although it was very low scoring and kind of ugly at times. The offense seemed to flourish a little bit, at least the passing game. It was the best passing game of the season. So I think that because PJ, I'd like to think, knows that this is a big game and this might define your season, he's going to want to open this playbook if he can. You do have a new quarterback, so maybe there's a little limitations there. But I think if you really want to win the game, you have to kind of just let loose. That being said, I do think the Gophers will win. It's going to be a really tight one, a nail biter. I think our defense will be stout, and I think our offense will just do enough in order to kind of win the game.
Yeah. Max is with you. Max texted in his predictions ahead of time. He actually gave a score prediction as well. He's got us winning 31-28. He thinks we control the ball, but UNC has playmakers everywhere. Could be a shootout we'll have to keep up with them. But he's got the Gophers winning 31-28. I think it's a similar game. I think North Carolina, just looking at it before the season starts, you could make an argument that on paper, that might be the best offense we face this year, just with the talent. But no, definitely could go either way. Like I said, I feel like there's a lot of coin flip games in this year's schedule, and I couldn't give them all to us, so I just went through it and went with my gut the first time through, and I'm sticking with it. So.
Yeah, I like the pick. It's going to be exciting. That game, I love that first game kind of start off hot. Make it competitive at least.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on to Rhode Island. The next game also at home. Playing this D1AA team. I don't know a ton about them, but definitely have to be ready to play. I think Brosmer had a game against them, and he was on the losing side of that game. So I think for him personally, that's going to be something to, really avenge from last season.
Yeah.
But I guess other than that, not much to say. I think that the Gophers dominate at home against a smaller team. I think offensively, defensively, we probably won't throw the ball that much, I would guess. I bet you we just ground and pound all game.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I think it'll be low scoring. I think PJ basically just milks out the clock as we bully him. I know we're not really doing scores, something like a 28-7, something like that. I don't know, something low scoring.
Yeah.
Max gave a score of 47-0 Gophs. Brosmer revenge game from an OT loss with New Hampshire last year. So that's what you were referencing as well there. Yeah. Should be a get right game, no matter what happens after North Carolina. Just a focus and getting ready. That would be a worse loss than the Bowling Green loss, probably. So Let's not have that. Nevada the next week. I'll say this: this should be a big win. They might be worse than Rhode Island, to be honest.
Right.
I mean, they had 2 wins last year, and they lost to some really, really bad teams. Their biggest achievement was they played Kansas close, one of the earlier games of the year, but that was it. I mean, they lost to Hawaii last year. That should be, just another tune-up before you got Iowa the following week. So we all have wins I'm assuming you have a win against Nevada as well.
Certainly, yeah. I totally agree with your sentiment on saying that they might be worse than Rhode Island. I totally agree with that. Not a very good-looking team. You got to win this one. Again, it's another game I think that PJ relies on that conservative ground and pound. Keep the cards close to your chest. I don't think that it's going to be good for the Gophers, but I'm almost certain that he will do that. And just in time, I guess, for this next one, the big one, Iowa. I'll just say, Iowa does scare me a little bit. They do. I feel like their quarterback situation, which has been a thorn in their side for the past few years, I think that it definitely improves this year. You can't really get much worse. Defense is always going to be great. And they really are going to want to get after the Gophers this year after what happened last year. The good thing is it is at home. PJ is going to be fired up for it as well as our players. I will count it as a win. I think that we finally just understand the formula of these Iowa Hawkeyes. PJ wants to prove it. He's going to put up and not shut up. I think that the Gophers win a really ugly, sloppy game, low scoring, and they'll get their 4th in a row.
Yes. You touched on so many of the same points I have down. Again, it's a 50-50 game. I even if we're without a loss heading into this game, I still think Vegas will favor Iowa just because of them returning so much on defense. They got Higgins and the other linebackers in which I'm blanking up. Plus they got Castro still in the secondary, all terrific players. And they got a new defense or offensive coordinator, and Brian Ferentz is out of
Mm-hmm.
there. I think something people are forgetting about though is I really was not impressed with the offensive line for Iowa. I think that was a bigger struggle than maybe their fans thought. I think Brian Ferentz took a lot of the heat. And that their offensive line really wasn't creating much push. I know they like their running back room, and I think I'm there with them, but
Yeah.
we haven't seen them do a ton. Again, that offense was so bad they didn't have a lot of a chance. So maybe it is the kind of thing where everyone knows they're trying to run it 90% of the time, so their offensive line doesn't have much of a chance. But they're definitely not like the Tristan Wirfs area, era of offensive line out there for Iowa. So that still does concern me. And yes, they absolutely will want to beat us again. It's a rivalry. We beat them last year in dramatic fashion. But I think for PJ, not for the state of Minnesota, not for Gopher fans, not for the university, but for PJ, I think he hates Iowa more than anybody. I think he wants to beat Iowa more than anybody. Him and
Right.
Ferentz clearly don't get along. So I think the Gophers will be ready. I think the offense is going to mix it in just enough. And they don't have Tory Taylor, the game changing
Yeah.
punter this year. I'm sure they have some other Australian that's going to flip the field fantastically for them. They always have terrific special teams. I'm with you. I got a close, maybe a point victory here for the Gophers, but I'm with you. I think Gophers keep Floyd. They got the monkey off their back last year, which is actually what Max said as well. If I see his monkey off her back. Home crowd will be confident. He's got the Gophers winning 16-10. Yeah, I think there's a little bit more points than that, but yeah, it's going to be really low. So I
Yeah.
have us 3-1 through the first four, and I think that would be a huge
That's
win.
that's great. Yeah. I have us 4-0 coming up to this point.
Yep.
Um, Michigan Wolverines. Um, you know, great team last year, obviously defending national champs. It is on the road at the big house. That's going to be tough. With their quarterback Orgy, he seems like a guy. I think that he's going to be their starter. I don't know for
I
certain,
think
but
so.
um, he's definitely a dual threat quarterback. I don't know how his arm's going to be per se. Obviously, it's got to be something. New head coach, but a good
Yeah.
offense mastermind. Their defense is going to be good. Edwards is going to be running the ball. They have their cornerback. That's going to be probably the number one draft pick. Um,
Yeah.
I mean,
And the best D tackle probably in the
and,
Big Ten
right.
in Graham.
So with all of those factors, it's going to be tough for the Gophers to compete. Especially like I was saying, if you're not going to throw the ball the previous few games, I don't think you're going to do that well against a Michigan team who's got some good defensive back and D tackles up there. Um, I hope it's competitive, but I think that Michigan does beat us up for our first loss of the season.
I'm with you. As much as I'd love to win the Little Brown Jug, yeah, Michigan's just a little bit too much still. I know they lost some guys to the NFL draft, some great players, but unfortunately for the Gophers, we also saw their backups last year. Everybody that traveled in that game to the bank last year played for them, and they all looked pretty dang good, and they were going against
Mm-hmm.
R1. So I'm with you. It's I hope we put up a better fight than last year's team. I just still think Michigan's gonna be able to run the ball pretty well. And yeah, that defense is still going to be pretty nasty overall. Like you said, best corner in the Big Ten, best D tackle in the Big Ten. It's just a lot to handle. Maybe we can shock the world, but we're going to need them to have no passing threat really to even have a chance. So I'm with you. I got Michigan winning that one, and
Yeah.
and Max does as well. He's got Michigan 36-14. His only notes were a letdown game after Iowa, which we'll go with that excuse there. That's what
Yeah.
happens. So yeah, I am at three. I'm sorry, I'm at 3-2. You're
Yeah.
at 4-1. You and Max are
Yeah.
at 4-1. And then
Yeah.
we roll into at home against USC. Your secondary team there, Shuddy. What do you think we do against the
Yeah, the
Trojans?
Trojans out of USC. Kind of a funky team. Lincoln Riley is just a beautiful mastermind when it comes to offense, and he just churns out Heisman winners and
Yep.
great quarterbacks. I wouldn't be surprised if they got another finalist kind of cooking under his wing out there. Their problem is their defense. Um, Tremendously horrible. And I don't know if it gets that much better this year. Certainly not under the first time defensive coordinator. But their offense is so potent. It's just a matter of can the Gophers keep up with that? I do think that because of the style of play differently, PJ is such a conservative, hold on to the ball kind of guy. I think that if he can do that effectively and put points on the board, you have a chance at maybe eking out a win against this team because the Trojans' defense has been horrible. I think if you can really run the ball against them, I don't think that they'll have an answer for that. I think this
Yeah.
is another game that will ground and pound, and that may work to our favor. However, I think that their offense will just be too potent for our defense. I think that it's a closer game than you would think, but I do think that the Trojans are able to eke out a win at the end.
Max is with it. He's got USC winning 40-34. So back and forth. Ultimately, can't keep up with them. I'm going all out on this one. This is my call of the year. I think we come out and we do beat the Trojans. I think the defense gets better. They've seen the ground and pound team in Michigan at this point. They've seen the explosive team in North Carolina. A lot of points are going to be scored in this game. I agree. It's probably going to be up there. I just think we're going to be able to run the ball, and I'm counting on USC's offensive line to not be the best. So I think we get a couple turnovers and stops here and there, and we just control the ball from there on out. So I think this is going to be the win that PJ is kind of hanging his hat on at the end of the year, taking down a blue bud in USC. It's going to be the next Penn State W that we talk about. I'm not saying that this USC team is going to be as good as that Penn State team from a couple of years ago, but I just think that's how PJ will treat the win and use it in any kind of contract negotiation. So I have the Gophers upsetting USC at home after that loss to Michigan. So yeah, that brings us all to the same point, right? Because we're through how many games here now?
That's through
We're all
six, right?
yes, and we all have us
Mm-hmm.
4-2, just to
Yeah.
different people. All right.
Yeah. This next one on the road in I guess Pasadena technically, but against UCLA. Um, you know, this game to me screams trap a little bit, Curdy, because UCLA is not that good of a football team. At least last year, they were not. New head coach,
Yeah.
kind of a new look UCLA team. It'll be interesting because I wonder how PJ will want to play against UCLA with all that noise. Is he going to go to UCLA? Was he spurned by UCLA? And is he going to have a chip on his shoulder? I doubt it, but
Gosh, dang it. I thought we weren't even going to do that. Did you see that come back up this week about the talk of him in
yes.
UCLA?
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right.
But again, who
Yeah.
knows? It's bulletin board material. People are going to talk about it, during the season. With that being said, I think that it all relies on their quarterback at UCLA, Ethan Garbers. I don't think he started last year. He's the projected number one starter, but when he did play, he went 98 for 146, 1,136 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. They obviously have some athletes, I think, that surround him. It'll just be a matter of Minnesota just being stout, playing their football, methodical, taking care of the ball, and not going on a long road trip to California and just kind of playing
Right.
poorly. I do think that the Gophers will be able to eke this win out, but I think that it's sloppy on the Gophers' end and it's too close. But I do have the Gophers winning.
I'm with you on UCLA probably being a bottom tier Big Ten team this first year here. New head coach, lost a good chunk of players, including their star quarterback. He's now the backup at Oregon. That's the NIL money they got going on right now. And he was a great player. So I just think that there's too much to replace and too much to adjust to in the new style of play with the Big Ten. And I'm not, I know UCLA's got athletes. I'm not expecting like a 40-point blowout, but I do think that this is one of the maybe a little bit more of the must-have games if you're a Gopher fan, if you're PJ Fleck and staff, and want to get to that bowl game. So I have a W on the road at UCLA as well, and Max does as well. He's got a score of 27-18. Says a bounce back game against an inferior opponent. So yeah, he had us losing to USC and then bouncing back against UCLA. So we all have it as a win against UCLA. So, yeah, 5-2 at this point in the year. I think a lot of people would take that.
Yeah, tremendous. It's just that some of those games are going to be toss-ups, and I just hope
Yeah,
we get the better end of it.
absolutely.
Um, let's move on to Maryland. Um, you know, Tua's little brother
Yeah.
is gone. And I think that he was the difference of them winning the games. He was a solid quarterback. But I think that his departure is going to be tough for Maryland. I don't think that they'll be able to reload at quarterback like they want to.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be all the difference. And as a result, maybe their head coach will be on the hot seat. I think this game against Minnesota, they kind of have it circled as a must win, maybe. One of those
Oh, for
games that
sure.
they hope they can win. It is tough because they're on the road and we host them. Um, but
Yeah.
you know the history. It seems like when we play Maryland, we just can't really figure it out. They seem to
Well,
run the
yeah.
ball all over us.
There was a
Um,
stretch where it was very back and forth. Like it's
yeah,
like we couldn't contain them, and then we kind of beat them a few times in a row, and then
right.
is the last time we played that COVID year in the weird overtime game where PJ should have gone
Yes,
for two and
I
we
think
missed the
so.
extra point. So
I
yeah,
think
we do
so.
have some weird games in years past with Maryland.
Right. Um,
Uh,
But
go
with that being said, I think that the Gophers handle them. I think that this is a game where finally the Gophers, after a
Yep.
tricky game against UCLA, long road trip, you get Maryland, and it's after the bye. So I just think that, you know, with all of that, they'll be able to just handle Maryland and win convincingly. And we can kind of take a deep sigh of relief after a pretty bad game, the last one
Yeah.
against UCLA.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think Maryland is one of the more beatable games on the schedule. Their front seven returns, and I want to give their defense a little shout out because they were better than I think people gave them credit for last year, and their whole front seven is back, I believe. But
Yeah.
I'm with you. Losing Tua's little brother on offense, and I just don't trust them to replace it. And I know they like their running backs, but I don't know. I a lot of people have Maryland finishing above us too nationally that pick it, and I think that's just because of their schedule. They have a pretty easy start to the year with their schedule. But listen, this morning I listened to the Lockdown Maryland football guy, and even he predicted this as a loss for Maryland. He thinks it's an even matchup, so probably one of those closer to 50-50 games. But I also have the Gophers winning this one, and Max does as well. So. Um, yeah, we all got a dub against Maryland.
Great. Um, uh, this pains me, but the next game is against the Illinois Fighting
Yeah,
Illini.
Bielema.
Um, undefeated against the Gophers. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. Is it 12-0? I've lost count.
I think it's up to 10. I think it was 8 at
10-0.
Wisconsin and now 2 with Illinois, I think.
Yeah. Um, anyway, on the road against Illinois, it's going to be tough. I think that, you know, Altmaier. I remember we were doing our quarterback,
Yeah,
projections and who's the best.
I
I'm
was
not
high
so
on him.
high, not that high on him. However, I do think that they have a great defense, I think. Outside linebackers, Seth Coleman. They have two stud defensive backs. They got Terrence Brooks from Texas who transferred there. He had an honorable mention all Big 12 season. So, I mean, it's going to be tough to throw the ball on them, I think. And we don't really do that well. All they really have to do is probably stop the run. Um, and then offensively, like I said, I think that the Gophers will be able to handle them while they're on offense. The defense that
Yeah,
we have, I think, is good enough to stop these toss-up games, but I don't think it'll be enough against the Illini. We've lost to them consistently. They seem to have the formula for us. I think we lose probably by a score, and
you
that'll
and
be that.
Max are on the same page today. You have not differed. He's also predicting a loss to the Illini. Simply, we can't beat the big man. That's true. But I will say, last year we had it in the bag with multiple chances to put it away. Don't forget the misplay by Ethan to I think we had the tight end open to get that last first down and convert it, and not even have to worry about them getting the ball back. So, and they were without Jerjon Newton, the man that has absolutely
Yeah,
wrecked Gopher football. He's out of there. So you look at that. We were actually doing pretty well against Altmaier. I know he was banged up, but doing better against Altmaier last year. Um, the O line, they're counting on some transfers on that end. I got to see it first. I think we get off the schneid and win a tight one on the road against the Illini. So, yeah, I have us with the best record right now, I believe, at I always forget what total games we're at. I'm at 6-2, right?
yes. No, 7-2.
Yeah. Yes, I'm at
Yeah,
7-2.
seven and
Yep.
two. Okay, well, let's shift out further east. Rutgers on the road. We all know the drama of this game. It is the rematch. Well, I guess not rematch, but the former player playing his old team, old coach. He's gonna have a chip on his shoulder. Um, Kurt, I think you said it best. I think that PJ walked in that quarterback room at the end of the season and said, I don't see any of you being the starting Gopher quarterback next season. And
Yeah.
I think because of that, Ethan is just going to want to sling it. Um, that being said, Rutgers is a good team. I think that they've definitely improved from what they've been historically. I just don't think it's enough. I think that the Gophers will be able to just overpower them. I think that they'll be able to run the ball over them. I think that they'll be able to throw the ball effectively. I will say
Yeah.
this. If Ethan is just tearing the Gophers up through the air
It's going to be bad.
and we cannot do anything offensively, it's going to be very telling on
Yeah.
what the issue is here at
Yeah.
Minnesota. I do think the Gophers win handily, but that's all I really have to say about that. I don't think you cannot lose if you are PJ Fleck. I know that you're not going to let a kid that you used to coach, bother you, but you
Oh,
can't
it's
lose
going to
this game.
bother him. He
We
definitely knows that, though. He's aware
yeah,
of
you
how it
cannot
looks.
lose this game. You can't lose this game.
I'm with you. Max is with you as well. He's got a very close game, and he's got the Gophers pulling it out on the road. Rutgers seems to be the media's kind of darling this at this point, and I think it's a lot to do with like their current recruiting class. They return a lot of their defense, which was a good defense. They have a great running back. I I gotta see it click. I know Ethan's reunited with Kirk Soraka. I hope it works out for him, just not against us. He seems like a nice guy. I think PJ's going to want this one bad too, just because Soraka's the coach that left him. Ethan, I don't know. It doesn't sound like it ended on the greatest of terms, but I think they'll he'll be motivated to get this one for sure. I'm just not sold that Rutgers offense is just going to take off, and it's just
Yeah,
assumed now. Oh, they'll have a passing game now. I'm not really there yet, and I don't know. I think our offensive line is just better than theirs. I think we'll be able to run the ball more effectively than Rutgers will be able to. So I think it's going to be an extremely tight game, an extremely physical game. But I am also giving us the W over Rutgers this year. So I'm sitting here with 2 games left, and I got the Gophers 8-2 with 2 games
yeah,
remaining on the schedule.
yeah. And I got the Gophers at 7-3, I believe.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and just just foreshadowing here, it's probably not going to look as good these next 2 games. We got Penn State at home.
yeah,
We do have them after a bye after Rutgers, which I think is good.
yeah,
And I got to tell you, Kurt, I am wanting, you know, another 2019-esque, Penn State Governor Victory Bell win. That would be awesome to see. It's
yeah,
at home. I think that'll be a packed game.
yeah,
The question is, can they do it? We know offensively that Penn State was kind of wishy-washy last year. They'll have a good defense, returning quarterback. I don't see how they don't improve offensively or at least stay the same. And for them, for us, that kind of offense would be great. But when they're playing against, the past East teams, it's just not enough.
right.
Um, I do think that because I don't think our offense will be that potent against their D, and because of that, I think that we'll succumb to them. They've gotten the best out of us the past 2 times we played them. It hasn't really been too pretty. And I think that although this will be a little more competitive, I still think they get the best of us. So I'm going with Penn State.
Yeah, I think if you're a Penn State fan, this is your year to make the college football playoff 1 and 2, potentially win a game. I think that would take a lot of heat off Coach Franklin there. They miss Oregon and Michigan this year. They do have Ohio State, but even if you lose that, you just got to beat USC and Washington. They still have Wisconsin as well, so I don't want to say it's like a nothing, but I really think Penn State, if you're a Penn State fan, you're looking at this like this is our easiest year to do something. Drew Adler's back, those great backs are back. They do lose 3 guys in the secondary, but they brought in 2 transfers. One guy was at Georgia, one guy was at Florida, so they placed it with good talent. Manny Diaz is still there. I think they're going to be an extremely tough game, maybe the best team we play depending on what
Yeah.
Michigan looks like. So I also think we've come up short. Give it a good effort, but probably lose by 2 to 3 scores. And when it's all said and done, I got Penn State winning, as does Maxwell. So we all have a loss to Penn State. We end the year on the road in Camp Randall. A Black Friday game this year, Shooty, at Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, how do you feel
At
about
11
that?
a.m.
Yeah,
Um, which is odd. That's like an Iowa Nebraska sort of game. It's going to be
yep,
different, but I'm still getting up for that one. Look, I think that Wisconsin. I think they'll be better than last year. I think Fickle. He wants to turn this team into something that can do a lot of cool things offensively through the
yep.
air, which is it's going to be odd seeing that. If it's successful, it's going to be really odd seeing these Wisconsin players spread out, not running the ball with their usually top 5 running back in the nation. Um,
Yeah.
but with that being said, I do think that, you know, I think that the Gophers will have the talent to beat them. I just think that it's not their day. I think that
Dang.
and it pains me to say it. It's on the road. You know, I think that for
Yeah.
Fickle, I think that because of the recent history between Wisconsin and Minnesota, Wisconsin, they're like, oh, this is just another dub, in the past. But in recent memory, it's been a competitive series, which has been
Yeah.
awesome. But like we said to PJ when he was here, just beat Wisconsin. I do think that this game for Fickle is more important than it was, for Christ
For the
and
previous regime. Yeah. Because they
for
had a
and
stranglehold
Bielema.
on it for the most part. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that Wisconsin will get up even more for this game than they have, in those previous regimes. And I think that they'll just be able to take on the Gophers and win the game at home. Pains me to say it, but
Yeah.
that'll be that, and then that's the 7-5 season that I have.
So I'll go next as well because I also have it as a loss. But on paper, I feel like it looks like we would have a better chance against Wisconsin than in Iowa. Like if you were to drop us in a
Right.
neutral site, because I think the talent's right there. But I gave us already so many of the 50-50 wins. I felt like I couldn't, and I'm with you. It was just a gut thing. A Friday morning game on the road, extremely tight contest. Um, you know, but I think Wisconsin does squeak it out. I just trust their defense a little bit more than ours at the moment. Again, by the end of the year, though, you might not have half your players due to injury and whatnot. So we'll see when we get there. And Wisconsin's schedule is absolutely brutal. They might need this
Yeah.
game to go to a bowl game. I mean, they
Right.
got their 3 games before us. They have Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, and then us. That's their final stretch of games. So it's definitely, and that, like, reading that off already makes me want to flip it back to the Gophs winning. But I'm not gonna. I'm gonna stick with my gut. Max, however, he does have the Gophers taking back the axe in a close 1-point game. He's saying PJ goes for the win with a 2-point conversion late, and it pays off. That will never happen. That's the
It
most
will never happen.
unrealistic prediction I've ever heard.
Never,
Um,
yeah.
we'll have to make Max explain that one. But me and Max
Hmm.
have the Gophers then finishing with an 8-4 record. He's got the win over Wisconsin. I have the win over USC. That's the biggest difference. And then, yeah, you guys both have losses against Illinois. I have a loss against North Carolina. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
Kurt, usually I am the optimist,
you are.
and
Your kid has
I,
changed you.
yeah, yeah, he sure has. No, I just think, after the 2019 season, I know we referenced that season a lot. It's
Yeah.
going to be going on what 5 years now. And I just feel like we've been floating at this 7-6, maybe 8 wins, and we just cannot get over it. I
Yeah.
don't see why we would this year. You know,
Yeah.
um, Departure of Rossi. Um, the West is done. I just feel like that window is now shut, and I don't know. It pains me to say this, Kurt, but I think this is the defining season for PJ Fleck. I think
Wow.
that
Well, I agree with that.
if he wins 7 games, if he wins 8 games, I do have a lot of hope for them, like just having a great, once in a blue moon 2019 season where you can win maybe 9-10 games.
Right.
It's just that, if you win 7 games again, if you win 6 games again, can you really see that the Gophers do any better under, as currently
Uh,
constructed? I don't know if I do.
well, well, I think that I think 6-6 will be extremely disappointing, but I think it's going to be a passing grade. I think if you go 6-6, there's got to be other factors at play. Did the offense get better? Did you have an actual usable passing game? Did you show signs of improvement? Did the young guys on defense take a step forward this year? And maybe it's just another issue with either personnel or a first time D coordinator and learning how to use those guys the best. That all remains to be seen. I will say though, like if this passing offense sucks again, you're going to have an awful hard time recruiting it and keeping the guys you have to stick around for next season. Look at the problems Iowa's had. The one thing Iowa has right now is that they just churn out tight ends left and right. So, yeah, I am with you 100%. A lot hinges on this season. There's no chance PJ gets fired because of his contract. But, yeah, if this is a disastrous year, he sets up that following year, I believe, to have a really hot seat. So it's going to
Yeah.
determine a lot. I don't know. We've heard from behind the scenes a little bit that he's just got a quiet confidence about this team, and that's something that we haven't seen out of him a lot lately. I don't believe he's been playing his cards closer to his chest this year, and I think he's doing that for a reason. We know he likes this team, so I think it's going to be a good year. I don't think we'll explode offensively like maybe some people think we'll do, but I think the defense is going to get better as the year goes on. So 8-4, I think overall it's a pretty good year. Splitting the trophy games, obviously, I'd love to get the Wisconsin game and the Iowa game in there, and it might work out that way.
Yeah.
We could easily
Yeah.
drop one of those games to Rutgers or whatnot, but 8-4, I think is pretty good.
I think 8-4 is great. If you do go 7-5, I think
Yeah.
I think that's passing. I don't think 6-6 is. I think
No,
that's
I'm with you. If you go 7-5, I think
you need to
too
split.
you have to have one of the trophies still. I think
Yeah.
if you go 7-5, but you lost to Michigan, Iowa, Penn State,
Wisconsin and
USC, and
Illinois.
Wisconsin, and really your only win was over like North Carolina and
Terrible.
Illinois and Rutgers, like that's not going to get people very excited.
No.
But 7-5 is 7-5, and I think as far as the athletic director is concerned, I think that's going to get him a pass. I mean, he can't. There's literally unless he does something off the field, PJ Fleck cannot get fired. So I'm just letting all you Gopher fans know now. Maybe you don't follow it as close. His buyout is humongous. He cannot. He's not going to get fired even if they don't win a single game. So they can't afford it. They just can't afford to do that. And but I really don't think we're going to get to that point. I think it's going to be an okay year. 8-4, sticking with it. I reserve the right to change on a week-to-week basis based on what we see. But the USC one, I'm not backing off. That's my call of the year as we get the upset win against USC, which is a win I
like
don't
that.
think a
That'd
lot
be
of
awesome.
outside people are giving to us at the moment. So sticking with it.
Awesome.
I kind of thought of this a little bit late, but I want to run it past you. What game outside of the two trophy games like gets your juices flowing the most this year? Like what game are you the most excited outside of Wisconsin and Iowa? Like what game are you looking forward to see the Gophers play? Because it's a different schedule, obviously, with the two new teams out of the
Yeah.
West. You're not seeing all the same Big Ten West opponents. I just want to know which
Yeah.
one gets you the most excited.
I think part of me, because like you said, when I was younger, watching those cool USC teams, just from a nostalgic standpoint, watching the
Yeah,
Gophers play them, that's exciting. But and as a Gopher fan, it's the first game of the season. I just think that against North Carolina, it's going to be one of the best games of the week in terms of a
yeah.
matchup. Um, First game, college football starting, this is it. And I think it will define how your season could go. If the Gophers come out and roll out of bed and they just get stomped by UNC at home, I just will have kind of low hopes for the season.
See,
Um,
I get that sentiment, but at the same time, if you go 3-1 with the win over Iowa, I think you're going to recover okay.
I
As
agree
a
with
fan.
that, but I'm yeah, regardless. I just if you lose that game, so be it. But you cannot make it uncompetitive. You can't get destroyed by them and tossed around. Not at home, not the first game of the season. Make
For
it
sure.
competitive.
I don't think they
Um,
will either, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
but yeah, that one gets me excited. What about you?
I I gotta go Rutgers just because of all the storylines. Like that
Sure.
game is gonna be so on the road. You assume Ethan's got some beef against us just because sounds like him and PJ butted heads a little bit, maybe. Kirk
Mhm.
Soraka ditched us again. That's got to bother PJ. They already didn't get along like super well. I mean, they got along fine, but like, and they worked together. But he left once, and he had made some comments that maybe people didn't love about us after he left the first time. So, I think PJ really wants that one. I think he's sick of losing his. And they still have our safety. I'm forgetting his name, but he's still there at Rutgers as well. Now he's one of their best players on defense. I forget the safety that followed our safeties coach over there. But yeah, now we got their linebacker coach in Heatherman. So I just think that one's got all the storylines too. I think Rutgers is gonna be a good team. So I think that's a very sneaky, underrated game heading into this season.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. Can't believe we're almost there.
Oh,
Boy,
I'm ready
yeah,
for it.
I'm ready. Let's go Gophs.
You want to
Let's
do the
go
player
Gophs.
one, or do you want to save it for next time? It's up to you.
I mean, we could do it. We can make
Let's
it.
do
I
it.
already know who I'm going to say. We
Okay.
can make it quick. Briefly here, we just want to kind of touch on out of the past Gophers that have came through Minnesota. Who's someone you'd want on this football team?
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Kurt, I was thinking about this and I'm like, wow, back in the day, there were some great Gopher football teams. Three-peating, obviously, national champions. We got a Heisman in there. We got Bronco Nagurski, trophies named after him.
Yep.
But I'm going to go with a recent player, and I wonder if you have him. I got to go Marquise Gray. What I loved about
Really?
him,
That
I
is
would
not the player I thought you were going to name.
I like him because the dual threat ability that he had. Now he didn't throw
So
the
you're
ball
you're
that.
taking Marquise Gray and putting him at quarterback on this team. That's what your pick would be.
Here's what I'll explain why.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think that having a dual threat would be awesome. I think that that's what I've been wanting for the past several years. We saw Demry Croft come here, and we thought that that could be the next thing, and that didn't really pan out. Um, but we saw Marquise Gray, and he's just an athlete. Played tight end in the NFL. He played some receiver on the Gophers. You know, ran for several touchdowns. Ran for 14 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 12 touchdowns in his career. Threw for 14. Had 6 touchdowns as a receiver. I mean, he's just an athlete. And I don't know. I just feel like he's a beloved Gopher. Um, it was tough. I've seen a lot of great Gophers come through the doors,
Yeah.
but I guess I'm just looking at from a perspective of something in a position that I want to see, and that's something I want to see at the quarterback position on
Fair
this
enough.
team. On this
I
team,
Yeah, I got you. That is not the direction I thought you were going to go. No, this all came out because I posted that tweet. If you could take one former Gopher player from your lifetime and put him on this year's team, who would you choose? There were some people old enough to say Bobby Bell, and I think that's a very tough pick to top. A lot of Tyler Johnson, Winfield, Bateman, Decker. I think Winfield probably won the overall response as far as his who was mentioned the most. Um, Max also went with Antoine Winfield Jr. Just because he says he feels that the safeties are the weakest point in the defense, which I think is fair to say. And he also wants to use him as a punt returner. All valid points. For me, I'm going defense as well, just because I have a little bit more questions about the defensive side of the ball. But I'm going in the front, and it was between two. And I'll name the one I'm taking, but I just, as a side note, I want to mention the other guy I was considering as well. I'm going to go linebacker. I'm going Damian Wilson.
ooh, great
Um,
choice.
Guy lasted in the pros for a while. I got a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, I believe, the first time around for Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, the dude was just an absolute athlete, super fast, super physical, always led the team in tackles, I believe. I miss the days of having him and Devondre Campbell as a duo out there. But if you had
Oh
Damian
yeah,
inside and then Cody bumped to outside this year, or vice versa, really, I just don't think Damian Wilson would come off the field. He was just a tremendous Gopher linebacker. I maintain the best, off ball Gopher linebacker of my lifetime. So that's really just from mainly 2000s, mid
A
90s. I don't
pick
remember.
six against Wisconsin. I thought we were
Yeah.
winning right when that
Did he
happened.
have one
Remember
against
that?
them too? I remember
Yeah,
Bonnie
remember it was at
Calhoun.
home. He
Yeah, but
picked
Bonnie
it.
Calhoun had. Oh, they both did it. They both
Yeah,
did that. Yeah, Bonnie Calhoun did it a couple years later
yeah.
as well, and we lost that one too. But
Hmm.
yeah. Anyway, yes, mine would be Damian Wilson. Um, okay, and I just got to throw this guy out here. Rashid Hagman at D
Hagman,
tackle with
yeah, I
with
knew
with
it. Yeah,
Eastern. That was the other one I considered. Just an absolute. I mean, he's probably the last consistent pass rush
yeah,
we had from the inside out of all these years. I mean, that's 10 years ago now. So
yeah,
at least.
yeah,
So I'd go Rashid Hagman. It was between the two. I just like Damian Wilson a little bit. He was just a little bit more my favorite, I guess. But they were
yeah.
both awesome players, and I had to throw them out. If I were to go offense, I'd probably go Max Williams. Get a solidified weapon at the
That's a
tight end
great
position.
choice.
So
I just don't know if we would utilize.
that's fair.
Yes, I agree,
Yeah, we
but
just had span four and it didn't work out, so I
yeah,
wasted on Max Williams. I get that sentiment. But yeah, that's all we got for this one, fellas. But thank you for tuning in. Hope you liked it. Hope you comment and maybe we bite the bullet because it appears a lot of our viewers come from when we're live on X. So we'll look into that. Probably get out to as many platforms as we can. And yeah, Shooty, any parting thoughts?
no, just everyone out there, like the video, subscribe, leave comments,
Yes.
let us know what you think. Let us know how many wins you think the Gophers will have this season. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yep.
Um, but
And
as
we are
always,
also partnered with the College Huddle. Just want to put that in there again. They do
yep,
great work. They have almost all the Big Ten teams, and they have college football teams from across the nation. Go to the site, thecollegehuddle.com. It brings you directly to all these teams' podcasts. We'll be doing collabs with them in the future, so check them out. We're excited about it and looking forward to the content we get to bring you guys. So check them out. As always, go Gophs. We'll see you next time.